What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. We are your co-hosts, Spencer and Gabe, and today we are joined by our friend and recurring third chair, Chris, to talk about The Name of the Wind, the first book in the Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. As always, if you enjoy our content, please do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button here on YouTube. And also feel free to follow us on Twitter to keep up with what we're reading. That's at Files Fantasy, or just look up Fantasy Files Podcast in the search. Next week, we'll be starting our series on the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, starting with Jade City. So feel free to follow along as we go through those books leading up to the November 30th release of Jade Legacy. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for housekeeping. So without further ado, let's talk about what we've been reading. Gabe, I think since Haunting of Hill House, have you read anything?
No,
besides
other than this book, I have not. I've had a lot going on, so it's been hard to really grip and grab onto a book. But so far, no, it's just been Kingkiller.
Right on. Chris, what are you, now that you've read Kingkiller, what are you reading next?
I'm reading the second Kingkiller.
Yeah, you right.
Are. Honestly, this book pretty much consumed all my reading time.
I'm so happy about that, man.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're going immediately on to the second one. It's a great choice. I also really want you to go. I was watching a review recently that another booktuber did for the second book in the Gentleman Bastard series, The Lies of Locke Lamora.
That's right.
And it just reminded me how good of a book that is. And I'm like, I cannot wait for Chris to read the second Locke Lamora.
You want me to read the second one? Yeah, that's I'm looking forward to that as well. That first one still has a fond, place in my memory. But
yeah, for sure. So right now I have a physical copy. I haven't switched over to the audiobook, but I'm reading a physical copy of The Way of Kings, the first in the Stormlight archive. And I'm just eating away at that little by little each night before I go to bed, read for like 30 minutes to an hour. There was, when I was off of work this last week, I read much later than that. But I am enjoying Stormlight a lot, and I think both of you guys would too, because you can definitely see how Brandon Sanderson has evolved from Mistborn to this. There's a lot of Mistborn type things in the Stormlight archive, specifically like the magic system is very much like Mistborn, like it has a very specific way that it works. And so, I'm enjoying that a lot. Also, I think I said on last week's episode, I read The Expanse book 5, so I'm officially ahead of Chris.
Oh man,
as is expected,
to read
that. No, but I'm seriously, I love that series so much. I'm so glad that you told me to read that because I am loving that series, loving the show. I won't go too far into it because we talked about it a whole bunch last week.
Right.
But loving that.
Good.
I also today I was trying to figure out what to read before reading Jade City for next week's episode, and so I started this this indie book called Oathbreaker, and it was one of the advanced review copies that we got sent from an author on Twitter, and it's pretty good. I'm probably 3 or 4 hours in. And it's kind of like I wouldn't call it grim dark, but it's definitely like dark fantasy. It's definitely like rated R kind of fantasy. But so far, it's pretty cool. There's a few things that are kind of annoying about it, like when a book will tell you things instead of showing you things. Like I don't know what a good example is. Like there's this one scene where you find out that this one character is immortal, and then in every single conversation from there on out that he's in, he's always like mentioning the fact that he's immortal, like as if you've forgotten.
It's not part of his character to brag about it. It's like the author had to remind you that he's immortal by him saying it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That kind of thing is annoying.
Yep,
you see it a lot. You see it all the time in TV shows, but I guess in the books I've read, it's less intrusive. But yeah, in TV shows you see it all the time. We're like, oh, this is happening, viewer. Like this is happening.
Yeah.
Make sure you understand. It's like, yes, I get it.
Yes.
I couldn't tell from the context. Thank you for
right. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And like that same character, there's he's kind of in this very, very long-term relationship with a vampire, and she is like about to like drink his blood, and he's like, what does she say? She's like, oh, I love your blood or something. And then he's like, and it's almost like as if he like turned directly to the camera and said, oh, because my blood gets you drunk and it doesn't sustain you. And she goes, yes. And it's like, okay, well, like they would have, like, that doesn't feel like a conversation they would have had. Like it feels like he's saying that specifically to tell the reader, like, my blood is different. She doesn't get like her normal vampire stuff from it. And so I was just kind of like, all right. And the other thing, the other thing that I really don't like about it, and I'm seeing this a lot in a lot of modern fantasy, is there's kind of this this group of people who is like very thinly veiled as like Christian zealots. Like they don't call them Christians, but they call them, you know, children of the light or something. And like their ideals and the way that they kind of go about things are, it's very obvious that they're supposed to be like the Christians of the story, but they're also like the racists and the bigots and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, that's like
pretty bold.
I'm like, that's not very thinly, I mean, that is thinly veiled, but I'm just kind of like, all right, whatever, just look past it. But otherwise it's a fine book. It's got me intrigued enough to finish it. So
okay.
Chris, what have you been playing? Any games? Have you got a PC? You got a new PC?
Oh, what? I didn't know that.
Hold on.
Okay.
I didn't get a PC. I built it.
Oh, yes, sir. That's my dude.
Yes, weeks of research and then several days of putting it together. Yeah. It was. I still get giddy right now. It's like that.
What kind of
that new toy feeling? I love it.
What kind of graphics processor? Just really quick. I'm
3070. Yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
NVIDIA won a raffle.
RTX 3070. Yes, I won a raffle and I won the right to buy a graphics card at MSRP price.
Wow.
So for not like a not an inflated price.
Yep, I've got a 2060, man, and I haven't found a game that doesn't work on it great.
Okay.
So you're probably set up good.
Yeah, it's a beast. I ran benchmarks the other day on my PC, and it was like across the board. It was the ratings were like, you know, piece of wood at the very bottom, or like, you know, like and then the higher it got more advanced. So it was like aircraft carrier, nuclear submarine, and then UFO was the very top. And so I got UFO across the board.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's not 3080, it's not 3090, but you know, it's decent.
Still though, that's wild, man. The 30 series is insane.
Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, it's been fun. I've loved playing with the RBG and getting it all, you know, looking pretty with the lights and stuff and all that good stuff. So I actually have not been playing any super graphically intensive games on it. Like I haven't fired up Witcher 3 or Cyberpunk or anything like that yet. but I've been playing this really fun game called Outward.
Oh yes, yes.
You played Outward?
I'm pretty sure I have. Yeah.
I highly recommend it. It's kind of a janky RPG, but it's very much in the vein of Skyrim, where it's kind of open world. You go out and do what you want. And in this, you're kind of a nobody, and you can create your character to be whatever you want. Like I said, much in the vein of Skyrim. But it's got a certain charm to it that I really like. Like the character models are kind of, shitty, and like the the dialogue is not going to blow you away like Witcher 3 or something. But it's the world is really pretty to look at, and it's a really fun game. To just go, like, it's co-op, so it's a really fun game to go out with a friend and you just explore the world, find gear. There's a little bit of a survival light element to it, so you've got to set up camp at the dark when it gets dark, and maybe cook some food or drink water, and rest for a bit, go to sleep. And there's a really cool mechanic that if you both go to sleep, there's a chance that you might get ambushed. So what you do is you can have someone keep watch instead while the other person sleeps, and that reduces the chance that you get ambushed. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Like I said, survival light type of stuff. But
so can they fast forward time while you sleep?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have not played that game. I thought that it sounded familiar, but I haven't.
No, like I said, if you look up screenshots or something, it looks a little janky, but like I said, the world's beautiful and it's fun because there's a lot of just things to discover, and it's a lot of fun.
Cool.
So yeah,
nice. So I just finished Deathloop the other day, and oh my god, is this such, you have to download it. You have to get it.
I know.
It is so much the next evolution of Dishonored. And it's because it's from the same people that made Dishonored 1 and 2. And at first I was like, kind of, before I had bought it, I was kind of iffy on it as it was coming out, because I'm like, man, there's a special place in my heart for Dishonored, and like it's kind of that time setting and stuff, and Deathloop is like way in the future of that world, like there's guns and stuff. And so I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to like this game, but I absolutely fell in love with this game. And it is just, you can see so much of Dishonored in it, the way you move around the city, and like there's all these different pathways and different ways that you can get to the ending. The cool thing about it is like in Dishonored, your options are to either go like super stealthy and get one ending, or go super crazy, like actually fight people and go another.
Right.
This game, it does not matter if you kill people or not. There's no rating for how stealthy you were. So you could run through the entire level and just kill everybody and still get the same outcome. And so it was really, really fun to just like cut loose and kill people in like really, really creative ways.
Mm-hmm.
And and then the ending, of course, was like I went back through and got both the endings. And one of them especially is like, you just get this feeling afterwards, like, damn, that was really, really good.
Nice.
So yeah, I enjoyed that a ton.
How many hours did you put into it, do you think? Like to beat it the first time?
I put in about 65 hours to beat it the first time.
Whoa.
Maybe
I guess it's longer than I thought.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a lot of time.
Because what you're doing is it's set in like this time loop, and you're on an island, and you're trying to kill these 8 like leaders. They're called visionaries. And you're kind of stuck in this loop, but before your goal is to get as many visionaries into one place as possible, so you can kill them all at one time, or like groups of them at one time. And so you're going through the game, not through the game, but you're going through this time loop multiple times, like hundreds of times, to be able to get all the information you need to know where people are at what time, so that you can kill them all at once.
How long is the time loop? Like how long does each game last before the time resets? or does
so
it
it's
change?
it's not an actual timer. You have 4 times of day. So you have like morning, noon, afternoon, and night.
Okay.
And you just pick which one you want. And then there's 4 areas. And so you can mix and match these things like a ton, and you can play as long as you want in the morning in this area.
Oh, so
and
then you have to go
you
back and switch the time zone, and then different stuff happens. They move. Okay, I got you.
Right. Then when you go back to your base, then you choose like it either goes directly to the next time, or you can choose evening if you're in the morning or whatever. So.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that sounds like a game I would enjoy. I like that.
I really, really think you would like it. I don't know for sure that Gabe would like it, but I know for a fact
that's what I was gonna say, is that it sounds like something I would be on the fence about. Like it sounds like something that I would like. You know what needs to happen is I need to see you play it. So next time I'm over, I'll see you play it, and then that might fix it.
For sure. Yeah, and it's a lot of running around and looking in like every nook and cranny for like notes and computers and stuff, because you're collecting information. That's like your main job during the game. You're killing a lot of people, but you're also like you're also collecting all this info, because that's like the most important like commodity of this game. And so it is a lot of like information gathering and kind of like these little kind of subtle things that you have to do. So I don't know. It definitely appeals to me. But I could definitely see how it wouldn't appeal to some people, but I definitely think Chris would like it for sure.
Cool.
All right, that's pretty much all I got. So let's give our spoiler warning for The Name of the Wind. I almost said The Way of Kings. Spoiler warning for The Name of the Wind, the first book in the Kingkiller Chronicles. We won't be spoiling anything for book 2 besides like vague theories and stuff that won't really spoil any of the story stuff. So yeah,
thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to make sure that we didn't spoil anything for you. So yeah, spoilers in 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. All right, Chris, the VIP, as you've just read this book that Gabe and I are in love with these books. I have a huge fascination with these books. What was your journey through this book like? Because I know you really liked it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what it was. It was a journey. I mean, honestly, that first chapter, The Silence of 3 Parts, it seems like a lifetime ago that I first read that, to be honest. And, I read books a little slower than you, but still. And
you blew through this book. I was so surprised, because that was like we did Kingstark Tidings like maybe a month ago, I think. And you had just started reading this right after that. And so I was really surprised that you got through this so quick.
Yeah, I mean, it was addicting. I was going through it as quickly as I could. I don't know. This book is one that's going to stick with me for a while. I loved the way that the author writes, the prose that he uses. There's a lot of just beautiful imagery, and when we get into the quotes, there's some really great metaphors and quotes and how he describes things. I loved the theme of music in this book. As I won't call myself a musician, but as someone who would like to be a musician, in theory, it'd be fun. I just loved the inclusion of music and how important it was to the main character, and how it shaped his life and got him through some hard times, I guess. And then again, the magic system is another thing, which I know we'll talk about more in detail, but it's just another thing that was really intriguing to me, because it wasn't like on the surface, you say a spell and produce a fireball or lightning or something. It was a science kind of like, it's like, oh, you need a source, and you need a tether, and it's like, there's all this other stuff. And I was like, this is interesting to me, and it's subtle, it's more subtle magic, right? It wasn't right. But if you're clever, you can do some really amazing things with it. So that was really cool to me. I just love that. So those are some of the highlights for me. I guess I'll say, a lot of books that I've read are entertaining. They're entertaining, they're good books, but there's certain books that I read that I want to own, and then I put them on my bookshelf because the idea is like I'll probably read this again.
Right.
So this is definitely one of those books that I want to own, and I want to put on my bookshelf.
Would you agree that this book probably for me, probably more than any other book that I've read, it really, really makes you feel a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Partially too, because everything is so incredibly vivid. In the same way with like King's Dark Tidings, where I was like, I can picture everything that's happening in this book. Mm-hmm. This is that to such a huge degree, with the way that he kind of explains things, and just even like the environments and the detail in this book is so much that I have this very clear picture in my head of everything. And not only that, but like, not only the visual imagery, but the depth that all the characters have. It makes you feel like these are real people and like real relationships and real conversations.
Yes.
And so when those moments hit, they really, really hit. Especially with the audiobook, I think.
For sure.
No, it's true. And for me, it was a lot of just the minor moments that were the most poignant, that like felt the most real, I think I already cited this to you, but there's one where he's on the road to the university with the caravan. When he's finally getting out of
Tarbean.
Yes, he's finally getting out of Tarbean, and they stop for the night, and that one guy that's traveling with them has a lute, and he finally picks it up like after years and just goes crazy, and how everyone's just kind of like stunned afterwards. And that for me, that was a scene where I was just like, it's like, oh, I got a little emotional. I was like, damn,
I totally agree.
For sure. This is so intense, because it's like, this is something that's, it's hard to describe in words how
something he's waited for so long.
It's been a part of his life for so long.
Especially with that kid destroying his father's lute, which was something so precious to him. For him to like, even though it was somebody else's, like to hold this lute for the first time in years was something so like memorable for him. That was a fantastic part.
Yes.
Yeah. And I really love that. And then just before that scene, we had a moment where he and Denna were sitting on the waystone, and how it was described was like, is a waystone. There's one waystone, and there was another one that kind of went halfway into the water of a pond, and they were sitting on that and just like looking at the stars overhead. And it was described how like they were reflected in the ponds as well. It was just kind of like a quiet moment where, he was like, he was very attracted to this girl, and he felt something deeper, but he just he didn't say anything and just enjoyed the moment. And I, at that time, I didn't know if we were going to see more of Denna. Like I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to see this girl again. And I suspected that we would, but I wasn't sure. So
well, I remember having that same feeling when I read this for the first time, because you never really know what characters are kind of just a throwaway character, especially if it's somebody that you meet on the road in a fantasy book. There's a lot of characters in fantasy books that are just throwaway characters like that the main guy will meet on a road or during travel or something, and you'll never see him again. So when I first read that, I had that same thought, and I was like, probably won't see this girl again. And then when she comes up later, I was so surprised. That's a fantastic part. I cannot wait for you to read the second book. There was so many things that I thought happened in this book that actually happened in the second book.
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad that, like, you know, we reread it just now so that we don't accidentally spoil a ton of stuff for you.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Because like I had so many notes before I even started listening to it. I was like writing stuff down in my notes, like, oh, got to make sure to talk about this, got to make sure to talk about that. And I had to scratch so many of them out because I'm like, oh, that doesn't even happen yet. So I am so excited for you to get there. I think pretty much all of my favorite moments happen in the second book, my favorite moments of the entire series.
Okay, wow.
And there was definitely a couple of them in this book. But the second book is so cool because both of these books are, like, in my mind, and I think in a lot of fans' minds, they are like neck and neck even as far as like how good they are.
Yeah.
And like some people like are more favorable towards the first one, some people are more favorable towards the second one. Okay. But they both have that Patrick Rothfuss level of, you know, just absolute incredible writing. And so, yeah, I'm curious to see which one you'll like more. But the second book definitely, it takes what we already have and it like expands the world, and things just get bigger and bigger, and Quoth does more things. And it's like, it's not like twice as long as the first book, but it's definitely like, it's at least 1.5 times as long as the first one, I think.
Yep.
Okay.
So there's a lot that happens in the second book. I'm really excited. Gabe, how do you feel about this first book?
I love the first book, man. And again, like, I've read it how many, so I probably read it, this is probably my 4th time reading this book, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I've gone through the series. Well, even with Spencer, like, it's been a couple times that we've both done this, right? Like, gone through it and read it, and I'm just always amazed by, kind of like you said, like how much it makes you feel. Like, it's such a powerful book, and there's the writing is so intense, and like, you know, when he's homeless in Tarbean and this and that, and all this stuff adds up, and it's like this incredible, it's a masterpiece, man. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It really is. So reading it again though, and another part about this book is that I feel like every time I read it, I get a little bit more. And I read I hear a little bit more that I used to miss, like, especially between Quoth and Denna. Like, I feel like I've noticed a little bit more about the relationship that I didn't pick up last time, and this and that. So I was so happy to do this book again, and to do this episode of podcast on it. It's such a good book.
Yeah. I think you used a perfect word there, masterpiece.
Yeah.
So Patrick Rothfuss has only written these 2 books, and he's written a couple. Yep. And he's written a couple side stories that are really short.
Involving this world, or just
Oh no, yeah. So there's what's the one about that's about
one
Ari?
Of them is one of them is Ari and her kind of life in the under thing, and kind of seeing things from her point of view and how crazy she is.
Yeah.
And then the other one I have right over there, I haven't read it yet though. It's part of a bigger anthology. And so, yeah, I can't remember. It might be a Loden short story, maybe.
Oh, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I would be too. I haven't read it yet.
I didn't realize these were his only 2 books.
So this is like his life's work, and it's, you know, when I think about it that way, I'm a little bit more forgiving of the 3rd book not being out, because when you've read this like 4 or 5 times, you start realizing how many interweaving stories is in this first book alone.
Yeah.
It's like it's like way, 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 way more than you could ever pick up on the first read. This has one of the biggest like theory communities.
That's
like
what you're
people
saying, yeah.
people have these insane theories, and they back it up by facts in the book, and they show like on page whatever this happened, and like this means this, and it's literally like the book with the most foreshadowing. Both these books are the books with the most foreshadowing I've seen in any fantasy series. And I haven't gotten all the way through like Wheel of Time and stuff like that, but from what I've read, this is just known as like the theory series. Like there's all this stuff that you can easily miss. And so just like Gabe said, like even reading it again this time after watching the theories on YouTube and reading the theories on Reddit, I'm like, oh, that's where they get that. And I see how they made that connection now. And so this is the perfect series for rereads.
Interesting.
You can get an endless amount of information.
Okay. Yeah, I could see how that's very possible, because in my first read through, there's certain things that are mentioned throughout the chapters that you aren't really sure what it means at all. You're like, I don't really know what that means, but whatever, I'll keep going. And then you learn about it later on. I have a physical copy as well. You probably can't see it, but I've gone back and like read a few chapters, and there's some times where I'm like, oh, that's right, they were talking about this, and it's like, well, now that I know from reading the whole thing, it's like interesting. It all starts to connect. All starts to connect a lot better. It's like, okay,
because you have Quoth's storyline, you have Coates' storyline, you have Lonray's storyline, and then you have Incanis and Telu, that story. Remember when Telu put him up on the wheel?
Yeah.
And he was like a demon. So you have like 4 storylines going, and then it's not going to give anything away, but in the next book you get introduced to Jax and his storyline. And so you have, and these are all happening at very different points in time. And so you have like 5 or 6 storylines that are all parallel to each other and all interconnect. And so when you get to like your 4th reread, you just start to see like how they all make sense together, especially after reading theories. Like people who are way smarter than me on Reddit put together these theories, and it makes a lot more sense. But yeah, it's great. Let's talk about Patrick Rothfuss real quick. It's kind of cool how he doesn't, and a lot of what I was just saying has to do with this too. He doesn't answer a lot of questions outright. Like he'll answer the questions of like the main storyline, but a lot of it is stuff that you like. He like in this book and the next book are all the puzzle pieces you need to pretty much figure out the 3rd book, but you're not going to get it on a first time read through. And I definitely haven't gotten it yet. Like I said, people that are way smarter on Reddit have kind of figured this stuff out. But he gives you everything you need to know. Everything you need to know is in the book, but you just have to figure it out. And so I think it's really cool. Like, once you get through the story a couple times, you start to see all these like puzzle pieces that he's leaving around. And you see how much he's planned out this book. Like he must have, I don't even want to think about what his office looks like with all his planning for these books. It's probably insane. But yeah, it's kind of cool how he does that. I'm not going to talk about it too much, because I definitely went on a little bit of a tangent in our other Kingkiller episode. But I do have some qualms with Patrick Rothfuss. I think my main thing with him is he is undoubtedly a master storyteller. He is a master of his craft. However, what rubs me the wrong way is just the way that he interacts with his fans. He's essentially, and I don't know if this is something that George R.R. Martin did too, but he's essentially told the fans, like, don't ask me about the third book. Like, he's like, yeah, and he has like this he has this Twitch channel, and he's constantly doing Twitch streaming, and people are paying his Patreon to be on Twitch and like do his streaming on there. And I'm like, guys, vote with your wallet. Like, don't give him any more money for things that you don't care about. Like, if you want the third book, stop paying for him to Twitch stream. Like, because if he stops getting money for Twitch streaming,
he'll stop doing
then
it.
he's gonna write that third book. You know?
Are they just like discussion Twitch streams? Is he just talking like in real life? Okay.
That's what I'm wondering too.
I think sometimes he might do video games. I haven't even really wanted to watch a lot of them because I know what I've heard from people and what I've seen in some of the streams is him getting upset with the fans who are asking innocent enough questions about the third book. And he gets like very upset, and I just don't think that that's like a super cool thing to do.
I wouldn't like that
your
either.
fans that have made you millionaire.
Yep.
And so I definitely I stopped watching his Twitch stream because of that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of just like, you know, if you want the third book, then vote with your wallet. And stop paying for him to be a Twitch streamer.
I'm curious now. I'll probably have to check out his stream.
I agree. I agree.
Go on to YouTube and type in the Aeolian, and that channel has like clips of his stream.
Okay. I might get permabanned if I ask about the third book by the mods right away. Though, so.
Exactly.
For real, right? Exactly.
What did you guys think of Nick Podehl in this book?
I fucking love Nick Podehl so much.
Yeah, he's amazing as always.
So from this book, the Kingkiller Chronicles, and then I'll go back to the Land series, which I have read through and through several times. He does such a good job. I mean, it's like it's hard to even consider like how well he does the voices, because it's like, God, it's such a hard way to explain it, but it's like it is like he brings you into the story, right, with his voice. Like you are so much a part of it, the way that he describes it, and you're like, it's almost like you're talking to a person, like you're talking to somebody in front of you while I listen to this audiobook, and it's just incredible. He does such a good job with 12. All the women he does an incredible job with. Every single one is distinct. He does a really good job, and I can't say enough of how much I love the way that he narrates books. It's absolutely astonishing.
And he, you know, he is Quoth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
like,
for sure.
Like the way he does Quoth's voice is like, it's so perfect. And as soon as I first heard the audiobook, because I read it in print first, and I didn't really have like a good idea of what he sounded like. I don't even remember what I thought he sounded like in my head. But as soon as I heard it in the audiobook, I was like, oh, that is definitely him. Like that's definitely what Quoth sounds
for sure.
like.
Absolutely.
It's such an iconic voice. And I think not only are these books Patrick Rothfuss's masterpiece, but they're definitely Nick Podehl's as well.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
So how many series or books have you read, do you guys think that have been narrated by him?
Nick Podehl. So there's this one, Kingkiller, The Land, and
Kingstar.
Yep, Kingstar Tidings is the other one. And then I think that's it. But even with those 3 series, like that's a year's worth of reading for me, man. Like I can like go through all those so much, and they're so big, but for now that's it. But even those are very instrumental, at least to my fantasy loving, those books.
Yeah, I haven't listened to The Land, but he's done a ton of other books that are less well known. And I haven't read those or listened to those, but I've listened to the sample.
Okay.
And they're all more Nick Podehl, but the other I think King's Dark Tidings, this series and The Land are probably his best series, because the other books are not super well known.
Okay.
Books.
Yeah, he's phenomenal as always.
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys should have him on the podcast.
I wish
exactly.
we could. I wish we could.
Yeah. All right. So something that I really like about these books and the Dresden Files books, and probably a lot of other books that I've read too, is the first person narrative.
Yeah.
And not only the storytelling device of the first person narrative, but also kind of the unreliable narrator kind of storytelling vehicle. Device.
Vehicle.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But I love how we're in the frame narrative, which is Coat in the Waystone Inn.
Yeah.
And that's told third person. So everything that you're being told that is happening in that timeline is true.
Right.
But then you have Coat telling his own story in a past tense. And Quoth is an admitted liar and an actor, and he embellishes
theatrical.
A lot.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you really can't trust anything he says. He's a very good storyteller, but he's very prone to embellishment. And so he is kind of an unreliable narrator where, like, sometimes he gets things wrong, or sometimes he exaggerates things. And I love that storytelling device because it leaves so much room for another character to have a different point of view. It's not the story isn't being told to you from like this over the head third person kind of viewpoint.
Yeah.
You have this one person's account of what happened, and there's probably many variations on that same situation. And that's what I love about unreliable narrators.
Yeah, that's an interesting I guess idea that I didn't really consider before when I was going through all this. I was taking it kind of all as true. But yeah, that's
right.
A valid point. You got to wonder what he's embellishing and what's And so I mean, is that something that may play out in further books further on?
It might come into play in book 2. There's definitely several situations where Quoth says something or does something, and it's like somebody else has a different viewpoint. Like a perfect example is in the first book where Quoth is or Coat is talking to Chronicler and Bast, and he's telling them about Denna and how she was like this perfect woman. She was absolutely beautiful and perfect. And Bast was like, she had weird ears and she had a crooked nose. And so that's probably the first thing that really sets up. Everything is dramatized and through rose-colored glasses in Quoth's story. And so that's kind of the first hint we get at that, but there are more. There are definitely more of them.
Okay. No, yeah, that's a great one to point out there. Yeah.
And I think, the funny thing is too, eventually, I don't know if he plans on doing more than 3 books, but eventually we're going to get past the 3rd book and it's going to catch up to the frame narrative.
Right.
And so I'm curious if you know, that will kind of end the unreliable narrator, but it will also possibly just switch to third person.
Yeah.
Which would be if he decides to do more books past this of the rest of Coates' story. And so it'd be interesting if books like 4, 5, and 6 or whatever are in third person instead of first. I've got to imagine that writing something in first person is exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine how difficult that would be to always be writing from one point of view and having to not only consider your story, but also consider the thoughts of your character that is in the first person?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, I agree. It would be a mess.
As far as what type of book this is, I mean, it's obviously kind of a tragedy type book, right? Because we see in the frame narrative that Coat is this, you know, his life has not ended up well. And so whatever, like this story that Coat is telling, it's not going to have a happy ending. Yeah, and that's something that I think is super interesting about this book. As much as we love these moments in these books, and there's plenty of happy moments, like we already know that the third book is not going to end on a happy note.
Yeah.
And that is something I think is super interesting about these books.
No, it really is, because, you know, when you say that, like you say, it's a tragedy, my first inclination to be like, what really is it? But you know, when you're going through his story, it's other than, you know, the horrible incident of his parents, you know, that in itself is a tragedy. But as you progress and through the latter part of the book, he's on the up and up. He's at university, he's learning, he's, you know, spending time with Denna, he's got friends, he's making a name for himself. And, you know, it's largely positive, but then you have to keep in mind that like you say, in the actual framed story, it's he's an innkeeper, and according to Bast, one of his good friends, you know, and his student, he's, you know, kind of losing himself there. He's deteriorating, and then I guess even in the prologue and the epilogue, the silence of a man waiting to die, right? It's like so it's but you know, again, I haven't read the second book, so I have no idea what's coming, but I am curious.
I can totally agree with what Chris just said, right? It's you know, you want to call it tragedy because ultimately at the ending it is a tragedy, right? Like he's just kind of stuck, he's sad and whatnot, but all the in between stuff like is such a good, like there's plenty of times where I was like, yes, you know, like, oh my God, yes, like keep going and whatnot. And then there's times where I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry, like what the fuck is happening right now, and up and down. But like ultimately, like I always felt this like kind of somewhat positive vibe, like where he would, like, you know, something bad would happen, but he'd get through it and he'd finish on and he'd do this and this and this. So like I don't want to call it, you know, ultimately, like you said, tragedy, right at the end, but like it's such a story of like there's like really good things that happen and then he kind of falls down, then the good things and then he falls down, and then but it's in such a way where it's like it's easily absorbed and you can kind of get it and understand it. And so I agree 100% with what you said, Chris. That was perfect.
And it makes me wonder how the third book is going to end, because he's gonna get to the end of Quoth's storyline and get to the part where he changed his name to Coat, and then I wonder, are we gonna have like several chapters in the frame narrative kind of wrapping that up, or will the third book just kind of end when the retelling ends? With like one chapter in the frame narrative. So I'm super excited to see where that goes. Another thing I love about this storytelling is that it doesn't follow the conventions of your typical fantasy story with, like, you know, reading a lot of fantasy stories, you can kind of, you know, if you've read a bunch of them, you can kind of see this overall outline, like where there's kind of some stuff happening, then there's a plot twist, and then the character gets stronger, and then there's like one big epic battle, and then it kind of closes down to the end, and there's kind of like this.
I think you just described a Marvel movie.
Yeah, exactly. They're all like that, right? And so and so this book kind of defies that, and the whole time you're reading both the first and second books, it's kind of just a collection of small everyday moments.
Yeah.
Like you never really feel like something huge is happening. It's kind of just Quoth doing his thing day to day, like at the university or going out to Traben or all these other things. And it's kind of like all these really small things happening. And then when you get to the end of the book, you're like, wow, we just came a long way.
Yes.
Like, we went really, really far.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like it at the moment, like when you're in it.
No, it doesn't at all. And I mean, I think that's what I love about this book so much. It kind of reads like a memoir, you know, you're just reading about this person's life and the things that they're experiencing, and you're experiencing some of the emotions that they felt, you're laughing along with some of the jokes they laughed at, you know. It's like, it's cool. It's, I don't know, it brings a good feeling.
Yeah.
I was going to say something and I just forgot.
That's okay.
But yeah,
that's all right. Let's talk about the world building real quick. I only have a couple things for it, but one thing I really like about this series, very much compared to other series, is we are always very aware of how much money Quoth has at any given time, because money is like so important to him, and it's because he's so like destitute at the beginning. And so I thought it was really interesting. I really haven't seen this in any other book besides maybe some of the Dresden Files. Like, we usually have a pretty good idea of how rich or poor Harry is in any given book.
Yeah.
But this series, we can literally keep track of like how much money he has, because it tells you every single coin he spends. It tells you every single coin he gains. And I just think that's so interesting, and also part of the amazing job that Rothfuss did with the world building is we never really know how much exactly a talent is worth.
Yeah.
Because and especially as we go into the second book, we'll see this more, but all over, like everywhere Quoth has gone, a talent has meant something different.
Yeah.
Like at the university, talents are just spent left and right. They're like, they're probably like our equivalent of like $100 or something.
$100,
or like a 50 or something like that. When he's in Tarbean, a talent is like more money than he's ever seen in his entire life. And then, you know, as he goes up to you know, even like buying the horse, like all of a sudden he has like 20 talents, and he has to buy and he has to buy like this 15 something talent horse. And it's just the different ways. Do you guys see what I mean?
Yeah,
like just
for sure.
the different ways
absolutely.
This money is spent, and like how it goes, how far it goes depending on where you're at in this world.
Well, yeah,
I guess.
And it's dependent, like in my opinion, on where like Quoth is, right? So like when he's in Tarbean, a talent is like the world. Like, it is so much money. He's like, I can do so much. I can buy shoes, this, that, with the talent. And then he gets to the university, and it's like, I got 10 talents, but it's not, you know, it's
not enough to pay tuition.
It's not enough.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's barely enough for tuition.
Yep. Exactly. So I totally agree with that.
The other part of this world that I thought was super interesting was this idea of like the sweet eaters and the Denner resin. It was just kind of an interesting thing to throw in. It's such like a random thing to have in the book, but Rothfuss uses it in such a clever way, especially later on when they're in
the little mountain town.
Yeah.
Traben.
I was like, I know it starts with a T. Yeah.
Yeah. And he uses the Denner to try to overdose the Dracus.
The Dracus, yeah.
But yeah, you know, most authors in the fantasy books, they'll try to make something that's very similar to like heroin or something that's very similar to like cocaine.
Yep.
And Denner was something kind of all on its own. It had very different symptoms than anything we would see in the real world. It was mostly, I got the vibe that it was mostly like ecstasy with an addictive nature of heroin.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it was kind of this weird amalgamation of different drugs that like we would know in the real world. And so I just thought that was a cool little bit of world building.
No, I agree.
It was cool, and it was random how the you could tell a sweet eater by their white teeth, right?
Yeah, they bleached their teeth eventually. Yeah,
that was just, again, it's seemingly random, but I'm sure there's meaning behind it. But it was just, it's just kind of interesting to me how it's, if you can see their white smile, then you know it's like that's something to be alarmed about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I don't know if we were about to switch topics or anything, but kind of to go back to that, the money thing, just for real quick, is that one thing that I was thinking about is that, you know, a lot of times in stories, you kind of just get that the character is poor, maybe as a backstory, you know, like Harry Potter comes from a poor-ish family. His relatives, made him live in a broom closet or something, right? But it's not something that he really experiences throughout the book. It's just sort of tacked on his backstory, like in a lot of. But this in this book, it was something that you had to live through with Kavoth as he struggles. It's like and like like when he when he loses his loot, that was like a horrible scene. I was like, no, it's got like he's gonna fix it. It's gonna like, it's not completely destroyed. Something happened, but it's just like, no, it's fucking gone. And it's just like I felt that, that was heavy. It had weight. I was like, shit, dude, that was his one possession, like his, the one thing that he, and then there's several moments throughout that in Tarbean, where you just are like, oh God, like, I hope the kids don't find you, when he's running from people and like, well, you want him to keep his possessions. And then when he finally has a win, it's like, oh God, this is awesome. Like he could buy shoes, he gets a hot meal, gets a bath,
Dude, so, every time he gets a hot meal in Tarbean, like you as the reader feel that you're like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, you're like this is just this is a release right here. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say that I just wanted to bring that up because I was thinking about it after we kind of moved on, and I was like, that's kind of unique to this book, at least in my experience, is that.
Yeah, for sure. Or when he gets the shoes, when the guy gives him the shoes in Tarbean, oh my God, I tear up every time at that, where he's like, these are used shoes, and I don't sell used shoes.
Yes.
Well, not even that. He's like, these are my son's shoes. Like, these are my kids' shoes, and you look like you could maybe use them. And here you go. And he's just stoked.
And he like sets them down and then like turns around, doesn't he? Like, just like. But then Kavoth, because he leaves like a few pennies or something, doesn't he? Got him bride.
Yeah.
It's such a good scene. It's such like a seemingly insignificant thing to with someone when money's not a problem. It's just like you don't think about that kind of thing.
Yep.
Right.
But it was just it was, I don't know, it was eye-opening just to see how much every little basic need essentially was a struggle to get met.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Exactly. Yeah, Rothfuss does a really good job of you are right there with him. And he doesn't gloss over it. He doesn't kind of, do a time lapse of, Oh, there was weeks with food and weeks without food. Like you are there every day with Quoth and seeing him kind of struggle. The other part that I wanted to talk about real quick that has to do with money and kind of a win-loss kind of thing. I tear up every time when Quoth is in the nice part of town and it's like snowing out. And that like kind of noble woman comes over to him,
gives him a talent.
Gives him an entire talent.
Gives him a talent, and it's more money than he's ever seen. And he says something along the lines of like, she could never fully know like exactly how much this means to me and like what this will change for me. And to her, it was just like change out of her purse, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, she has no idea like what this means to me.
For sure.
And then the guard beats the shit out of him and he loses the talent in the snow.
Yes, that was horrible too. Yes.
Dude.
Good point. Yeah.
Oh my God. You feel both of those things so much. And then the parade, the festival is happening, like where they're all wearing the masks and stuff. And the guy comes up and like Quoth is like about to die, like freezing in the snow. And the guy like comes and like warms him up, like he's like rubbing his arms and stuff, trying to get blood flowing back into him. And then he gives him like a whole purse or something. He gives him like a bunch of money.
Was that the guy dressed as Incanis?
Yes. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. That was an interesting scene.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting scene, and I think that it has a pretty big part to play in one of the major theories coming up later.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about the magic system. What did you think of this magic system, Chris?
Okay. Well, let's see. I enjoyed it. It's one of the things I said earlier is that it's a lot more subtle than your typical, explosions, fireballs, lightning, fantasy magic.
Yeah.
But I like it because it's almost a science. How he's learning at a university, and you have all these different professors, master professors of different subjects, and you have certain things that are more mundane, like linguistics or something, but mathematics. But you also have things like advanced sympathy and alchemy.
And artificing.
Yes, artificing.
Dude,
another,
I love Kilvin so much.
Like the magical shopkeeper.
Exactly.
So things like that, I really like how it's there's an element, as I said earlier, there's an element of being clever,
right?
That is directly proportional to your ability to use sympathy and what you can do with it, right? It's not like again, I'm not trying to shit on basic fantasy tropes, but it's not like the chosen one who has just some unexplainable arcane power deep within him that they can conjure, that they're more powerful than everyone else. It's just like there's this thing that exists, and here's how you use it, but you can use it in clever ways that you would never think of, and I don't know, that was just so interesting to me. We didn't really see a whole lot of sympathy in this first book. And so I'm really curious to see how Kvothe expands on it. And then that doesn't even cover naming, which I feel like I've just gotten a tiny little taste of. They're just teasing me about naming.
So the second book is chock full of sympathy and naming. There is a ton of it in the second book.
Good. That makes me happy.
And you mentioned sympathy is kind of this science, but if you're clever, you can use it in ways that people wouldn't really think about, and you'll you'll definitely see some really clever, very out of the box kind of ways that he uses it in the second book. We even see a little bit of it when Quoth is getting robbed in the alley, or they're trying to kill him or whatever.
Thinking of that exact scene, yes.
And he drops the wine, and then he sets the wine on fire, and then I think he makes a light or something.
No, he had like basalt powder or something along that sort, and so he used that to make like the lightning or the bright light that blinded the two attackers.
Yeah.
And so, then we haven't even talked about Quoth's reputation and how his reputation keeps growing. But like from that, people are like, he called lightning and he called fire like a wizard, so people who don't understand what sympathy is think that he is like this arcane chosen one kind of fire throwing kind of person.
Yep.
And that's part of what is so cool about it, because like Imre knows a little bit about sympathy, but they more know about artificing than anything, because they have like the sympathy lamps and stuff like that.
Yep.
But they don't know about like malfeasance and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, it's really interesting to see how there's like this one part of the world, the university and Imre, that know about sympathy. Because even when he goes up to Traben and he like sets the coin on fire in the bar, and they're like, oh my God, like get him out of here, like he's doing some sort of magic.
He's a wizard.
And so people are scared of it. And I love the university so much. One of my most hated, by far one of my most hated tropes in all of fantasy is the student at the academy trope, where like the whole book they're like at this academy and they're learning to be assassins, or they're learning to be knights or something, and I'm just like, shut up, like I'm so sick of those books, man. But this series is the only one I've found that does it really well. And instead of hating the university, I absolutely love it. I love every time he's in a class, anytime he's learning from Kilvin or working on some sort of sympathy or hanging out with his friends. I absolutely love that stuff.
Yep. It's funny that you say that. I don't know. I don't hate the academy trope. I maybe I just haven't read it enough, but I still.
Oh, it happens so much.
I mean, back when I read Harry Potter, I thought Hogwarts was pretty awesome. I was like, oh man, I want to attend a magical school. But I still enjoyed this a lot, and you're right. Every time he's there, it's just like it's pure fun to read about his time there at the university when he's kicking it with Minette and all his other friends. And, it's just fun, and I love. Again, it's fun to read about his cleverness and the way he's navigating through his classes. Like that one scene in his sympathy class where he. I don't know if you guys remember this, where he has the candle contest where he has to light the candle. Oh
yeah, of course, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a great scene where it's just like, how's he gonna figure this out? Because he's got he drew the short end of the stick. There's no source, so he's got to light this guy's candle.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that was a cool scene. And then of course there's all the interactions with Ambrose, which I don't know if we're going to talk about later, but Ambrose is just this.
We have to.
Of course. Yeah. Ambrose is important. He's a motherfucker.
Yeah. Ambrose is a motherfucker. Okay. So let's cruise through our magic system. They also mentioned when he's on the road with Abernathy.
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 Yep.
when he's on the
sorry, I'm just sorry that bothers me because I
No,
called him
thank you.
Abernathy too, and then I was like, wait, it's Abernathy. That's what it is.
Abernathy, yeah. Abernathy's from Harry
Yeah.
Potter, I think too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, when he's on the road with Abernathy, Ben says something about a knack, and we don't really get this explained that much. And one of the guys in Quoth's band of troopers always throws sevens with dice.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about this. Abernathy says that sounds like a knack, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, at first he like disputes it. He's like, no, and then Quoth is like, no. He literally only
every
rolls
single
sevens.
time.
Anybody's dice, bring your own dice. These dice, this dice, like he rolls sevens.
Oh, I completely forgotten about that.
Yeah.
That's wow. Yeah, you're right. That's interesting, and that's never explained in the first book.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's all you get.
Yeah, that's really all we got about a knack.
What's a knack?
Yeah. So what is a knack? How does it work? It's got to just be like a passive magical trait, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so too. Yeah.
But so then Ben is teaching him how to do sympathy, and I really loved how anyone can learn sympathy, but you have to do some crazy like mental gymnastics.
Yes,
like,
the way he described that was really good. Yeah.
To even get your foot in the door, you have to really like bend and warp your mind to work a certain way. And so the quote that I have here is, believe this rock will float away. Believe it with a faith that will move mountains and shake trees. And then later on, I think in a couple of sentences later, he says, once Quoth gets that down, he's like, okay, now believe that the rock will float away while also remembering that it won't float away.
Yeah.
And like, it's this idea of splitting your mind in two.
Yeah.
And there's this whole like kind of cut scene of Quoth doing all these mental gymnastics where one part of his brain is like hiding a coin or something,
and the other part
he's trying to figure out where, and he's like
exactly.
talking to each side of his brain, and like one side of his brain is like mocking him, and all this crazy stuff.
Yes, he talks about feeling like annoyed and satisfied at the same time. And something like that.
So sympathy is cool, and I love the ways that it is used in the next book.
I'm very excited for that, because just for me, it's like baby steps, right? He's going through beginner magic. And, where you have people like Kilvin who can get a raging fire under control in seconds, right? That's like so far beyond what Quoth is thinking, possible for his abilities at the moment. So you're like, what is his potential here? Because I mean, he's become something immense, something powerful.
Right. And like even I love that scene with Kilvin, because Quoth is doing like the math in his head of how much fire that he had to move. And some like 500 gigatons or whatever.
750 million or 750 million, whatever. I want to say Scoville, but that's not it. It's some other measurement, but it's a shit ton.
Yeah.
It's so much heat.
And Kilvin says something to the effect of, I did it fast, but it wasn't easy. Like I moved. Yeah. Like how do you move fire like that very quickly but not easily or something?
Doms. That's what it's
yes.
Doms. Doms of heat.
But he says like, how'd you do that so easily? And Kilvin, I think Kilvin says, I did it quickly. I didn't say it easily. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's talk about our cast of characters real quick before we go into like our favorite quotes and moments. Quoth has so when we are getting out of the frame story, right before we go into like the main, Quoth storyline, I think this is one of the most badass ways to introduce a character that I've ever read. Quoth says, I have stolen princesses back from sleeping barrow kings. I burned down the town of Traben. I have spent the night with Felurian and left with both my sanity and my life. I was expelled from the university at a younger age than most people are allowed in. I tread paths by moonlight that others fear to speak of during the day. I have talked to gods, loved women, and written songs that made the minstrels weep.
Dude,
you may have heard of me.
Oh my god, dude. Oh my god.
Dude, it's so good.
That's insane, man. That is the best quote that I've ever heard in my life.
Dude, it gives me chills.
Yeah.
That's definitely the performer in
That's right. Yeah, that is the Redeemer blood for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thespian. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is a great quote though. And it's also
fantastic quote.
I'm glad you brought it up because it's also foreshadowing because
Again, for sure.
When I read that quote initially, I probably didn't really know what any of it meant because that's at the beginning of the book,
right? Yeah.
But now that I've read the book, I know only what a part of it means.
Yeah, that's right. And you will learn more as you read the second book.
Yeah, you'll learn maybe a couple of those sentences.
Yeah, okay. Well, a good chunk of them. They'll make more sense
in the next one. But a big one. The first sentence in that is a very big like fan theory. The I have stolen princesses back from sleeping barrow kings.
Okay.
And that works into like a larger fan theory that is like one of the main theories. So let's talk about Quoth. I wrote down here that it's interesting to see how like his parents he is. Like he very much has equal parts of his mom and his dad in him, because his mom is not like soft spoken, but she's like this very kind of hippie kind of mom.
Yeah.
She's not what you'd call arrogant in any way,
Yeah, right.
Kind of like
but his dad is.
But yeah, exactly.
His dad is where Quoth gets his like kind of arrogant
swagger.
Thinking very swagger is a great word. Yeah. But he also inside him he very much has that kindness, like whenever he's dealing with Ari, the mom side of him kind of comes out more. Anytime that he's kind of dealing with his friends or anything, the things that he learned from his mom come out really well. But we definitely see a lot of his dad in him. But I thought that was so interesting because I don't think I've ever read a book where you meet both of the characters' parents and you can easily see where they get certain traits from. Usually somebody's parents are just kind of like in the background and you don't really get to learn like how they've rubbed off on their children at all. And so I thought that was pretty cool character building. I also put down here, imagine how different things would be if Quoth had gone with the farmer in Tarbean.
Okay.
After his parents die and he gets on that wagon riding into Tarbean and the guy's like, you can stay with us.
Yeah, just work a little
Quoth
bit.
doesn't go.
For a while there, I was convinced that he was gonna find them. Like when he first was in Tarbean, and I was like, they're gonna come around the bends or something, and he's gonna go live a happy life in the farm.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I so agree with that. I cannot. I even this time reading it around, I like thought that I was like, just get with the farmer. Just go with him.
I want them to come back.
Yeah, just go with him. Oh. Yeah, what do you guys think of when you think of Quoth? Like words that describe him or just the kind of person that he is. Was he your favorite character? Was he not your favorite character?
So I feel like it's really hard to describe Quoth like in a nutshell. I would say that he is my favorite character.
For sure.
along those lines. Yep. He's very like, you know, it's kind of the, you see him down so low and you see him start to build up and you see him down so low and start to build up a little bit, like between Tarbean and the university and all the steps he has to take to get there. It's like this, his character, for lack of better words, is just powerful. Like it's just a really powerful character. Like it's hard to explain, but just the emotion that's attached to him and the things he's gone through. And not only that, but he brings it up later, like talking about his parents and the Chandrian and like, and then you feel it all again. Like, it's like they just died. Like you bring it right back to where they were and you're just like, oh my God, my heart breaks for this dude. Like, it's so sad. And so, yeah, so that's probably all I have to say. He's my favorite character. And I feel like that it was a roller coaster, you know, following this along again. Not that it wasn't before, because it was, but like this time especially, like it was very up and down, but very good. It was super solid the whole time.
Yeah, Kavoth is one. I guess the biggest thing I'll say is he's admirable. I admire him for a lot of his traits. One being his, you know, his wits, his brilliance. He's described as brilliant.
Yeah, Demaru tongue.
Well, that's another thing. Yeah. So he's got his wits and his brilliance, which he uses to, you know, to great effect to get himself either into, you know, advantageous situations or out of, you know, less desirable situations. So like I said, I admire him for his wit. But yeah, also his silver tongue, so to speak, you know, his ability to just weave words and convince people of certain things. There's several times throughout the book where, you know, he is convinced that he can convince someone of anything. There's certain scenes, I forget which one exactly, but there's ones where, you know, he's sort of at a loss, where he's just when he can't convince something of someone, like when he's trying to convince the masters, and you know, they're not listening. Like he's just inside, he's like crestfallen. He's like, how I can't muster anything else to say. Like, I don't know what else to say, because he relies on that so much throughout the book. Just like, I could convince you of anything, because I could sell you a paper bag, right? Like,
and that is absolutely one of the things that I love about him, because we've mentioned this word multiple times. He is clever. Like clever is the perfect word for him. He, like you said, he can talk anybody into anything. And he can just lie extremely well. Like we see in Tarbean when he pretends to be a noble and he goes into that clothing shop.
Good point. Yeah.
And he's always talking people down on the price of things. My favorite.
The horse trader.
Yeah. Well, the horse trader, but one of my favorite lines by him, and Nick Podehl just makes it so good with the way he says it. He's talking to Ambrose and he's selling his ticket, like his spot.
His
and he's like, we rue love to dicker.
Yeah. Oh, yep. I feel like he says so that much. More than once too. I feel like that comes up a couple times.
We really love to do it.
Yeah.
The horse thing, dude. He owned that horse trader, dude.
Yes. So funny.
But he owned him in such a way where he didn't even know that he was owning him, right? Like that horse, like he named him what he thought was nice. Castellan, yeah, and he thought it was like night owl or night, you know, something like that, but it really meant
Twilight.
Like Twilight, and it really meant like sleeve or sock. It was one sock.
One sock.
Yeah. And so he says it, and the guy's like 20 talents, and he says it, and then he looks back at him. He's like, "All right, what are we gonna do?" And he's 15? Like, "All right, 16 talents." And then both is like
way below.
Talents. He's like, "Okay, all right, cool."
It's like way below what he expected, and then he still bargains lower. He's like, "All right, one lower." It's like, oh my god, dude. It's like anyone else would have just been like, "Holy shit, yes, okay, yeah, 15." He's like, he's just like, "Oh, one lower."
Yeah, and then sorry, real quick, the tinker that's on the road like 30 minutes later is so good. Points out the one sock thing, but the voice that Nick Podehl does for that tinker is so different than any other voice he does. And I can't even do it. It's like this really, you guys remember how he sounded?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
I
loved the tinker so much.
For sure.
Yeah. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
Well, so I was just gonna say with Kavoth, I mean, he's all these things. What are some of his flaws? Like,
he's completely arrogant. He's so full of himself.
I would say
he's like super overconfident.
Yep.
Yeah, overconfidence is definitely a flaw. But common in younger folks. So maybe that's something he'll get over. But
that.
Right. Yeah, I think, and we'll see it more in the second book, but I think that he knows that he's clever, and he relies on that so much. I won't give any spoilers, but in the second book, he believes that he's putting on like a facade for somebody, like they don't know who he actually is. And he thinks that he has outmaneuvered him, and they send him out to do something, and he thinks that he's like one up on him. And then when he's out doing it, he realizes that they've completely outmaneuvered him. And so it goes back to him being overconfident, but also over relying on his trooper's tongue. Yeah.
Okay. So do we think that's like a fatal flaw? Is that his overconfidence is what ultimately makes him a tragic character, you think?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
I was gonna disagree with that, but now that you said it like that, maybe I might. I think that was fair what Chris said, that it might make him I think it could. I think it's to his detriment. And again, in the first book, like, we haven't seen a whole lot of it.
Right.
In the second,
that's what I'm basing my.
We may, exactly. So we may. So I guess I could agree with that. Let's say 80%. 80%.
Yeah. So what were you thinking when you were thinking of fatal flaws, Chris?
Well, so we just have described this as a tragedy that ultimately, we can kind of looking at him as a tragic hero of sorts, right? And so kind of a tragic hero has a fatal flaw usually that leads to their downfall. They have all these great qualities and they're a hero, but then there's one thing about them that leads to the tragedy happening. And so I was trying to see if there was something about Kavoth that we could identify or that we thought might serve as his sort of tragic flaw, or his fatal flaw. But I was asking the questions because for me, I'm not sure that I have anything specific in mind at the moment. Just based off the first book, is, like I said, he's overconfident, but that's
15,
yeah, exactly. He's a young kid. He's smart, he's at university, so it's like that can be forgiven. He sometimes he seems to lack comments. Like, he's got all these book smarts. Sometimes he lacks common sense, like when he walks into the archives with a freaking candle. But But again, that's something that could be attributed to inexperience. Being
Plus,
young.
He was doped up then too. He was
that too.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. That's just something that I've been thinking about and trying to determine. But if there's something about him that's going to be a fatal flaw, maybe his relationship with Denna and his willingness.
I was just about to say.
I would say that's good. That's good right there.
But I don't know. I'm not sure yet. So that's.
Yeah, I think, and you'll definitely stop it. You'll definitely see it more in the second book, but I think that Denna will end up being his Achilles heel.
Okay.
Yeah. I would think the same thing, for sure.
And I also think that I think that more than any like character defects or maybe everything combined, it's just going to be, and you'll see what I mean in the second book, because this will happen multiple times, but him just getting into a situation that is way over his head, or just kind of that overconfident thing of thinking that he's nailing it, and then he'll kind of find himself at a dead end.
Right. Okay.
And be kind of stuck. And I think that that's going to happen a few more times throughout the series. And he's just going to get into positions where he has to choose the lesser of two evils to get out of certain situations. As we start to see in the second book. And yeah, I think there's going to be some in the third book. I think there's going to be some complications that happen with Ari, based on some fan theories.
Interesting.
There's going to be some complications with Dennis, certainly. Yes. There's going to be some complications with Ambrose. And I think there might be some complications with, and this isn't anything that's based off the second book, but I think in the third book, there will be some complications with Sim.
Interesting.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Because
I would not have guessed that.
You got to think who is the king that Quoth kills. Ambrose is pretty close in line. He's the son of a duke that's what, third from the throne or something.
Yeah.
Like from what I've understood from theories, Sim is also in the line of succession.
He's royalty, but he's so much further down than like Ambrose is, like he was like can't remember what they said, but they brought that up and spoke about it. Here, Sim is actually royalty too, and then told about whatever it is.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's something I haven't thought about too much in depth, because he's so far removed from any kings. It was like,
right.
We don't even, I don't think we even know who the king is in the first book.
No, we don't.
Yeah. I can't remember if we even find out in the second book.
I don't think we do. I really don't think we do. I don't remember it at all.
In the second book, he definitely starts dealing with some like higher up people, though.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. In the interest of time, let's talk about what are some other of our favorite characters here?
Ari for sure. Hands down. One of my favorite characters, man. I absolutely love. Yes, I love Ari. I love the way that he met her, playing his lute and yada, yada, yada. I love the way that she came up and started to trust him and started to see that he's not like this bad person. And I have not. So there's a story, right, about Ari.
Short story
about Ari. I have not read it.
I want to read that. Yeah.
Yes, and I do too. And so it was. I love her character so much, and it like she warms my heart every time. And she's like this kind of like lost soul that's super weird and super abstract, and she has all these, here I brought you an apple, it's got the moon in it or whatever else.
Right.
But I don't know, I've always enjoyed her a lot, even from the first time I've read it. I've really liked Ari.
I definitely have so many questions about who she is, what happened to her. I mean, and it's like that with so many characters, though. I mean, I want to know more about Abinthy. I want to know about more about Ari. I want to know more about Master Loden.
For sure.
Yeah. I seriously cannot wait for you to finish the second book so that you can start looking into some fan theories, because there is a really, really good fan theory about who Ari is.
Okay. I'm terrified to look up anything online. Man.
Don't look up anything. Do not look up anything for sure. Yeah.
I think I'm just going to stumble on something I don't want to see.
So. So I have two really good quotes for Ari. Quoth brings Ari some honey wine, and she says, "Why, this is a princely gift. Think of all the tipsy bees."
Dude, that's Ari in a nutshell right there.
Yeah.
Like, that's like.
And then she says, Quoth asks her if she can show him the under thing, and she says, "Quoth, I thought you were a gentleman. Imagine asking to see a girl's under thing." And then Quoth is like taken aback for a second. He's like, "Ari, are you joking with me?" And she goes, Yes, I am. Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah, the way you say it is just like how I picture her. It's like, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. She's just, yeah, she seems like just a, someone you'd want to protect, right? Just like an innocent.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to describe it. Somebody you would want to protect.
Harmless, innocent,
lovable,
girl.
All the rest. Yeah.
Absolutely. What did you guys think of Sim and Willem? I think I liked them more in the second book, but what do you guys think?
I love Sim and Willem. I would say Sim is more the oh gosh, I don't really know the word, but Sim's more the relatable friend, I guess you could say, right? Like kind of a little bit more down to earth.
Right.
And then forgive me for forgetting the name. What's the other?
Willem.
Okay.
It's right there in the notes.
No, I know. I was on my thought here. So Willem is like, he's got a really crazy accent, right? Like he's what is his like where did he come from? Is it
Ciaro or
Ciaro? Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so he's kind of like this, like almost a little bit disconnected, but still like very, very cool. Like, Quoth awesome something. And he's like, how do you say this and this? And Quoth is like, no, you got to say this because that means that. It's just, I don't know. I've just always enjoyed the kind of back and forth between Willem and Quoth. And then Simon is more like kind of the down to earth, like, helpful. Not that Willem isn't, but like he's always there. He's willing to help. He's this, that, and the other. So.
He's the Lord of the Rings, like Sam.
I was gonna say, they're good sidekicks, I mean, they're decent sidekicks. I enjoy them for what they are. What about Denna though? Like,
yes, let's talk about Denna.
Yeah.
Ooh, I hate Denna with a fiery passion.
I'm reading here that you hate
Spencer
her.
does not like Denna at all. He never has. Not the first time I read the book, he's like, I fucking hate her.
Yeah.
Even after Kavoth explains like the type of girl she is, you can't
especially then
you can't hate a hurricane, Spencer. For can't hate a natural disaster.
That's right. You can't hate an
but she's not a hurricane. She's a human person that makes decisions, and she just sucks. No, there is a huge divide in the fandom, like people that love Denna and people that hate Denna, and it's only one side or the other, and people really love her, really hate her. It's this huge thing, and I happen to fall on one of those two sides.
And I'm the opposite. I like Denna.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, so I think that she is such, and you'll probably think this too, because it's just part of the story, but she's such an integral part of his development and his understanding of the way that things work. And he's starting to kind of look at women and this and that. And Denna is like his cornerstone, right? Like it's, there's so much based off of his interactions with Denna and the way that he feels about her. And it changes this, and he does this. He goes to Imre, 7 nights a week to look for Denna. And I just feel like, as much, and I want to agree with you first of all too, like as a character, like she pisses me off, like she fucks over Quoth all the time, like this, that, and she makes it seem like it's his fault, but she's really just like cannot sit down for 2 seconds type thing. But at the same time, like I love her character because she brings so much to the story, like she brings so much to
absolutely
Quoth. And that's what I said, like I know you'll agree with this because I know you do, but it's like just she's a powerful character and she brings in a lot and this and that, but at the same time, part of that power is not liking her, like she brings it part of kind of this anger, like, oh, why would you do that to him? Like just settle down and do this and this and this. But I don't know. I really like her character, and I think that I like her in such a way where sometimes I don't like her, but then I realize that she's like such a huge part, and I'm like, okay, I appreciate the fact that you're part of the story, but as a character, you're kind of a bitch.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Rothfuss has, with the entire book, but especially with Denna, kind of subverted these typical romantic fantasy tropes, where we really don't get to see them not even seal the deal in like a sexual way, but we don't get to see any like gain from this relationship, really. And it's it drives me nuts.
What
do you think, Chris?
Well, I think I'm still someone that has mixed feelings about Denna. I actually I don't hate her.
Yeah.
I don't love her.
Just wait.
I know it's a tough
Just
one.
wait,
It's a
just
tough
wait.
one.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
tough
just wait.
one.
I don't know. The thing is you know, she reminds me of
People,
guess,
you know.
yes, that
Yes,
I have
me too.
that I have
That's why
that
I hate her.
that I have
Yeah.
known in real life. That's
Oh,
why you
dude,
hate
I was
her.
not expecting you to say that. Dude, that
That's
is
why
so.
I hate her. Maybe that's why I have mixed feelings about her. Maybe that's why I don't hate her. I don't know.
Oh god,
Yeah.
that was so funny. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
she like I said, she reminds me of people that you know, I've known people like that, and I don't know. There's a scene where with you know, like I was joking with you, where I think Kavoth is talking with oh, what's that bartender's name? The guy that or not the bartender, but he's the guy that watches
Diok?
the door. Diok, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they're kind of
yes.
describing the nature of her person.
Yeah.
That is an amazing scene.
That is a
And
good part, yes.
It just sort of like it makes sense to me. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to write off shitty behavior and excuse it, but like in Denna's case, it sort of makes sense for me. It's like
For
she's
sure.
this girl that has, you know, the way Diok describes it, it's like she can't rely on her wits or anything, you know, to make a name for herself in the world. It's like she's a prostitute or something worse, right? That's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and so she's just like, you know, she is this way because she can be and she
has
sort of
well,
needs to be, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, if she didn't have looks, then she'd be like truly fucked, I guess.
Yeah.
But
No, for
Right.
sure. For sure.
so it's like I sort of understand her character, and I also understand Kavoth kind of like, you know, not falling head over heels, but sort of being obsessed with her in a way, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I get that. It's like sometimes, you know, there's
So I've definitely been there, man.
Yeah.
I've definitely been there.
and
Yeah.
so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I've still trying to work out my thoughts on her, but what are you saying?
Here's what I don't like.
Okay.
Is that Quoth is so obsessed with her that he shows up to Fella's room in the middle of the night and doesn't even realize that she's like inviting him in.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
See,
exactly.
I'm shipping either
Fella.
Quoth and Fella. I want that so bad. I want those two together so bad. I love Fella.
Yep.
Or I at least like I want Quoth and Debbie. I really, really like Debbie.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I know that's a little out of left field.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
But
yeah.
I'm like they at least need to have like a one night stand or something.
Yeah.
Kavoth and Debbie.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
But no, I love Fella way more than Denna, obviously.
Yeah.
I want the two of them to
Yeah,
be
I mean,
together.
Fella's admirable, yeah, because she's a university student, she's smart, she's willing to help both. I mean,
Yeah, for sure. She's super cute. The way that she's described is super attractive, super cute. Kind of like
Yeah.
Denna, too.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
Okay, so real quick before we leave Denna, so we don't know if Denna is her real name. Because she's always using a different name, and when she met Quoth, it happened to be Denna. So
right. Denna, Diana.
Yeah. And also, Chris, I'm specifically curious about your opinion. What are your thoughts on Denna's patrons so far?
Oh, Master Ash.
Oh, Master Ash, yes.
Sketchy dude.
Yeah, for real.
I'm just kidding. But well, actually, yeah, he is a sketchy dude. Especially when he shows up at that wedding and comes in, you know, where he's got to be a Chandrian, right? I mean, is that what we're all thinking?
That's a popular theory.
See,
that's a very popular theory.
It's the most obvious one, but
yeah.
So I'm wondering, is it actually? But
what's a synonym for Ash?
a synonym for ash, cinder.
Ooh.
Cinder,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Alright.
that's like the main
Okay.
working theory that people
Okay.
have.
Okay.
People also think that he is someone from the second book who might be an Amir. And there's plenty of proof for that as well. So when you get into the second book, I'll tell you about that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think besides getting off of Denna, I think besides Quoth, my favorite character is Elodin.
Oh yeah, Elodin's really
good. He is one of the best, especially in the second book, because he has a lot more to do in the second book. But he is one of like the best comedic reliefs.
Yes,
I've ever read. He's
for sure
so funny. And half of the scenes that I was thinking of with him don't happen until book 2, but there's a few of them in here.
There are some really good ones in the first one.
Yeah. All right. So anything else on Elodin before we leave him?
Well, go ahead.
Very eccentric fellow.
Yeah.
The masters hinted that something happened to him.
Yeah.
And so I'm very curious about what that is exactly. I hope that he starts to teach naming to Kavoth, because in the kind of the end of the first book, Kavoth is like, I'm wondering if I'm really learning anything. He seems to more just like be tolerating me and like trying to confuse me as opposed to teaching me.
You'll definitely see more of that in the second book, and as crazy as Elodin seems, everything he does really does have a purpose. And it's pretty crazy when you realize it. There's a YouTube video that I'll send you. I'll watch it and see if it has any spoilers for book 2. But there's a YouTube video where Patrick Rothfuss accidentally lets slip what Elodin's backstory is. Gabe's seen it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
oh, God,
he's at like a conference and he's not really thinking about it. And they asked him to like make up some character's story on the spot. And so he talks about this person that does all these things. And then he says, that is Elodin's story. And someone in the crowd goes, what? Like people start freaking out. And then Rothfuss just has this look on his face like, wait, did I just say that?
Yeah,
like,
shit. This is bad.
Yeah. So it's
oh boy. Yeah. Okay, that's funny.
All right, let's move on to our favorite quotes. I'll try to get you out of here soon. What were some of your favorite quotes from this book? If any?
So I had one about music that I liked. I told you guys at the beginning that I liked the theme of music. This whole, and so there's one that I thought was pretty apt, and it says, it's Kavoth, of course, and he says, music is a proud, temperamental mistress. Give her the time and attention she deserves, and she is yours. Slight her, and there will come a day when you call and she will not answer.
Yeah.
And then Kavoth says, so I began sleeping less to give her the time she needed.
yeah, exactly. That's when he starts playing his lute. I love it.
But yeah, it's kind of true. I just like that quote a lot. So
for sure. One of my favorite like funnier quotes is when Savoy is talking to kind of like the main friend group, and they're talking about how he either got a raised tuition or something because he threatened a master with his riding crop for his horse. And Willem says, you waved the crop at him. And Savoy says, I'd been riding. If I'd been whoring before class and waved a corset at him, nobody would have thought twice about it.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, I love that. And then one of my favorite Elodin quotes is when he takes Quoth up into the rookery and he's talking to like the nurse kind of person. And Elodin says, if I find out that Alder has been sedated or restrained. I will ride you naked through the streets like a little pink pony.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. Super good.
What about you, Gabe? Did you have any?
I do. So at the very end of the book, this is a quote between Bast and Chronicler. Bast sneaks into, or kind of makes his way into Chronicler's room. And so here it is. It's kind of long, so bear with me. But as he spoke, Bast's eyes grew paler until they were pure blue of a clear noontime sky. And he says, I swear by all the salt in me, if you run counter to my desire, the remainder of your brief mortal span will be an orchestra of misery. I swear by stone and oak and elm, I'll make a game of you. I'll follow you unseen and smother any spark of joy you find. You'll never know a woman's touch, a breath of rest, a moment's peace of mind. Bast's eyes were now the pale blue white of lightning, and his voice tight and fierce. And I swear by the night sky, and the ever-moving moon, if you lead my master to despair, I will slit you open and splash around like a child in a muddy puddle. I'll string a fiddle with your guts and make you play while I dance. Dude, I don't know why. That's like, that sheds a light on Bast that you're like, you're not, you know that he's Fae, right? Like he's just kind of separate entity. We're not quite sure how he's there and what happens yet, but like this right here tells you how serious he is about Quel'th. Like he is so dead serious and he's so into it. And it's like, man, like that right there is pretty intense. But yeah, that was my favorite because it was just it was powerful. Like you're like, holy shit.
That is a very intense quote, quite a threat. And I was surprised and a little annoyed. I was like, why the hell is Bast like going so hard on this chronicler? Again, it's because I guess it makes me curious for the next book. I will say
for sure.
Because obviously Bast knows something that the rest of us don't. And so I was just like, what is causing such a strong reaction in him?
Absolutely.
It's kind of explained in this book. He has known Quel'th for a very long time. And obviously they either met in the Fae or Bast came over to Quel'th's world and they met. But we get the impression that Quel'th met Bast when Bast was very young, because Quel'th is his mentor. He's his Reshi, right? Mm-hmm. And so Bast knew Quel'th when he was like Taborlin the Great, when he was like this king. He knew him when he was the Kingkiller.
Okay.
And so Bast hates it that Quel'th has turned into Coat and become this innkeeper. And not only does everybody else in the town recognize Quel'th as this innkeeper, but Quel'th is now recognizing himself as this innkeeper. Like he's so deep into his own lie that he's completely changed who he is.
And I was going to say that brings to mind another quote that we understand how dangerous a mask can be. We all become what we pretend to be. And that's something that I think I forget who says it. Is that Bast maybe? But yeah, about how Quel'th is becoming what he's pretending to be, which is this innkeeper.
Right. And it's also something that's also interesting to think about is in this world, names very much have power.
Yes, there's another quote about that.
Yeah. So like, what do you think happened when Quel'th changed his name to Coat? Because Quel'th is what he's known by when he is like Quel'th the Kingkiller. Like that is like the height of his like Taborlin the Great impression.
Yeah.
And so what do you think happens when he changes his name to Coat and starts going by that for years? It fundamentally changes him magically.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So
I like that.
Let me read like two more quotes and then we'll move on.
Yeah, you're good.
And we'll wrap this up. So then another quote that I had here, you talked about Ambrose earlier, and I love this quote. To deem us simply enemies is to lose the true flavor of our relationship. It was more like entering into a business. It was more like entering into a business partnership in order to more efficiently pursue our mutual interest of hating each other.
I'm laughing because that was like the first quote that I texted you, and I was like, dude, this book is awesome. I sent you that quote. I was laughing so hard. Man. I was like, this is amazing.
Oh, and it's such a good example of, it's not like super flowery or super like purple, like poetic, or no, it is poetic, but it's not like super overdone prose, but the prose is really good. Like it is very like poetic without being too much.
Agreed.
And just a couple. So I mentioned that I hate Denna, but I do, as much as I hate Denna, I do want their relationship to work out. Like I hate her because the relationship isn't going anywhere, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And so I love these quotes that are like, Denna says, "A gentleman's agreement then," and quote says, "More like honor among thieves."
Yeah.
And Denna says, quote, "Steal me." And that's when she's kind of seeing Savoy off and on.
Yeah.
And he's like not wanting to overstep. And she just looks at him, she's like, quote, "Steal me." And that was such a fantastic moment. "You always tell me the most beautiful lies," Dennis says to Quoth. Okay, I'm gonna skip those, and I have one more that I really want to read.
Okay.
So Elodin, at the very end of the book, Elodin asks Quoth to describe blue to him.
Yes.
And Quoth is saying, no, it can absolutely be described. And Elodin's like, no, it can't. He's like, using words to describe words is impossible. Like using a pencil to draw a picture of itself on itself. Difficult, frustrating, but there are other ways to understanding. Look, blue, blue, blue.
This is like pointing at the sky. Yeah. That was a really good one.
That's Elodin in a nutshell, man.
Yeah. Before we move on, did you notice how important these 7-word sentences are? Did you notice how many of them there are?
Absolutely.
I didn't. No, on my first read through, I did not notice.
There's so many. So I'm sure that I didn't even get half of them, but it's like a big thing in these books. And there's like whole Twitter accounts that are focused to tweeting out the 7-word sentences in these books. But yeah, 7 words to make a woman love you. That gets brought up multiple times.
Right.
And 10 words to weaken a strong man's will.
That's right.
And so, yeah, there's a ton of these. Like, I was just wondering why you're here is like the iconic one. I couldn't send you so far away. The willow moves to the wind's desire. These are all 7-word sentences. I guess I'm destined to be loveless. I feel like I've always been cold. Words are pale shadows of forgotten names. Ooh.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, I think that's all I got. Before we go, favorite moments. Any favorite moments, Chris? That we haven't already mentioned, I guess.
So, real quick, I just want to mention one more of my favorite quotes because I like some of the metaphors in this. And this one was funny to me because it resonated. I just posted it in here for the notes for later reference, but it says, and hopefully this isn't offensive to anybody, but it says, you see, women are like fires, like flames.
Oh, yeah.
Some women are like candles, bright and friendly. Some are like single sparks or embers, like fireflies for chasing on summer nights. Some are like campfires, all light and heat for a night and willing to be left after. Some women are like hearth fires, not much to look at, but underneath they are all warm red coal that burns a long, long while.
Yes.
And I was like, that's
That's so true.
Interesting way to.
Yeah,
it's a good way to describe various flames that you have throughout life, I guess. You know, like,
exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. I just really liked that for some reason. Again, this book is rife with metaphors like this that are great.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So favorite moments. Some of my favorite moments were, we kind of already talked about the smaller moments that we enjoyed, but I really enjoyed every scene that Kavoth was able to stick it to Ambrose.
Yes. Oh my God. Jackass.
Yes, that was great.
Yes.
And I loved when Kavoth got expelled from the university, and they're like, "All right, anything else?" He's like, I moved to provoke,
suspend his punishment.
Yeah, suspend his punishment and raise him to the rank of Raylar.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, all right, agreed. All right, we're done here. Let's go. Everyone's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is probably like the best plot twist, one of the best plot twists in the book, because Cote has said in the framing narrative that Ambrose eventually gets him expelled.
Yes.
And so we think that that's it, and then they flip the script on us.
Yeah,
I love that.
And so like that actually ends the chapter, and I was again, I was sort of devastated. I was like, no way, what's he gonna do? He's getting expelled. There's no way. Is this it? Is this all the training he gets? And then I turned the page. I was like, oh, thank God. Like, so that was a favorite scene of mine. And then also, I know we're almost out of time here, but how did you guys feel about the whole Dracus scene? Did you like it, or like?
I liked it.
Over the course of them trying to, of them figuring out what it was and finding that smugglers, or that I guess
the
resin,
Denner resin farm or whatever.
Farm,
yeah. I love when Quoth describes it as a cow or a chicken, and they're like super scared up on the ledge, and Denna's like hysterical, and she just turns to Quoth and she's like, moo.
Yeah.
No, I liked that. He tried to kill it with the Denner resin, and then he ended up dropping a wheel on it.
Right.
The big Palu wheel. And that whole scene was really cool. We really see Quoth kind of stretch his sympathy to the max of what he can do. And that's like a really good taste of what we get in the second book, because we get more and more of those situations where he is pushing himself to the absolute extent of what he can do sympathy wise.
True.
And so I like the Dracus.
Me too.
Were there any scenes? This book is notorious for like making people tear up, and it's like it makes you feel like every emotion. Was there any scenes that were specifically emotional for you, or that made you tear up or anything?
I mentioned mine already earlier. The caravan, the loots, but I don't know about you guys. If you had some,
that was gonna be mine too.
I always tear up when Denna sings Eluin's part in the Ballad of Sir Savian.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And when Quoth gets handed his talent pipes, and like he thinks that he's lost, and like we're in his head, so if this was told in third person, it probably wouldn't hit as hard, but we're in his head, and we understand how much this means to him, and how much it's going to change things for him. And so I absolutely tear up at that. And like Sim and Willem are tearing up at the song. Sim is a complete wreck afterwards.
Sim's a mess. Exactly.
That is one song I wish I could just hear put to music.
Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if
someone's done
somebody
something.
has made
someone's
something.
tried. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Gabe, have you gotten any favorite moments in before we go?
Yeah. So, I would say it's a favorite moment more in the sense of like, experience more so than like emotional aspect, but it's when Kvothe and Elodin go to the crockery, right? And Elodin is kind of showing him around and telling what it is, and Kvothe's like, and you might have to re-familiarize me with this in case I mess it up, but like, so they're in there, and then Elodin's like tries to like break the stone, right? And he does, but there's just stuff in it, right? Like there's some weird purple lines or whatever it is inside the stone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
they changed the composite of it so that he can't just explode it.
Yep. And so then he breaks that, and the composite's still there, and yada yada yada. And then they go on the balcony, and Kvothe is like, "What do I need to do to learn aiming from you? Like, what is it that I need to happen to learn aiming?" And Elodin looks at him. He's like, "Jump off the ledge." And without a second thought, Kvothe jumps.
He does it. Yeah.
He jumps off the ledge, lands. And he's like, is my spine broken or my legs broken? Like, what, like what did I break? Yada, yada. And Elodin comes down and whatnot. And they talk for a second. Elodin's like, I would never teach naming to anybody that would jump off this ledge because I told him to. Like,
he says he's like, congratulations. That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Exactly.
Ever.
Yes.
And then it's like, and then like the chapter ends or something.
No, that's it. Exactly. And so I love that moment with the Elodin, because it's like it wasn't quite what you were expecting, but it's like what you would what would happen normally, right? Like
right.
That is a great
how could
part.
you be so dumb?
And at that point in the story, Kvothe is still thinking that reality works like a storybook. Like the mentor is the person that's testing and like wants to see that you'll commit and
exactly. And it's true though, because what I thought during that scene, I almost thought that Elodin was gonna name the wind and like use it to like
so did I.
cushion him or something.
Save him, because Kvothe was so like certain.
He's like completely wrong.
Exactly. And then it's like, no, that didn't happen that way.
All right, before we wrap up here, I have one last thing that I'll run through real quick. Future book questions or popular theories. Something to think about as you go into the second book was, why was Kvothe's mom so concerned about him singing the derogatory lackless rhyme?
Yeah.
That's something you mentioned to me at the very beginning when I first started the series. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I went back and looked at that rhyme actually again because of what you said. Yeah. Okay.
So keep that in mind for the second book.
Yep.
So there's a popular theory that Kvothe becomes a Chandrian and that they are actually the good guys. And this is a theory that I subscribe to.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So at the beginning of the book, there's a quote that says, I think it's Chronicler saying this, some are even saying that there's a new Chandrian, a killer in the night, hair as red as the blood he spills.
Ooh.
And when Chronicler says this, Poe has this body language of his hands are on the bar. He's looking down as if a great weight has settled upon him. And so I think there's some truth to this statement. And really my main reasoning is because Rothfuss is so good at subverting tropes that I think the Chandrian are going to end up being the good guys, and they're going to be misrepresented because not only with Kvothe, but this entire world is an unreliable narrator. Nobody has any idea what they're really talking about, and there are two sides to every story in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go into the second book, you'll see kind of the other side of Lonray's story. And I really think the Chandrian are going to end up being the good guys. They're going to be misunderstood, and that the Amir are going to be the people that are basically the bad guys.
Interesting.
There's plenty of theories out there on Reddit and stuff. At the beginning, or in one of the interludes, Coat takes a knee, and he says that he took an arrow to his knee while adventuring. And I'm wondering if Skyrim came out after Name of the Wind.
Really?
And I'm wondering if it's an Easter egg.
I read that immediately, thought Skyrim.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That'd be so funny.
Yeah.
We should look that up sometime. The history.
Yeah, I agree.
I would not put it past. Rothfuss. Will we ever see an ever burning lamp? You know,
Yeah.
We must.
Kilvin,
Yes.
Kilvin wants
Kilvin.
this ever burning lamp so bad. I really hope Quoth makes one.
We can figure it out. Yeah.
Who is the guy who came into the inn to attack Quoth?
Right, that mercenary.
Yeah,
Yep.
and he bleeds like black from his mouth.
Yes.
And we see that Quoth can no longer use his sympathy. He can no longer call fire on the alcohol.
That was disappointing.
Yeah. And so
it was. I agree.
What's gonna have to happen to get him back to using magic? Did somebody put what's the sword on the bar? Folly?
That's just a question that I had. Yeah, folly.
Yeah.
What folly, and why is it called that?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. Great question.
Oh, yeah.
I think I read a fan theory recently, but I can't remember if it has to do with the second book, so I'll wait.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
All righty, guys. Final thoughts? Anything?
I loved this book. It's honestly my favorite book that I've read in a long time. It's one of my favorites. It'll go down as one of my favorites of all time, I'm sure. So
that makes me so happy.
I'm already looking forward to future rereads of the first book, and I haven't even started the second.
Right. Yeah.
Man. I'm so excited for you to read the second book. I think you're gonna have a fantastic time with it. Like, so much more happens. It's so dense. There's like way more events than this book. It's just packed full of stuff. So yeah, I'm super excited for you to read that. Super excited to discuss it. And thank you guys so much for staying up tonight to talk about this wonderful book, this wonderful series that now we all love.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys, we are going to wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out and listening to us talk about The Name of the Wind. As always, if you would hit that like and subscribe button, we'd really appreciate it. And follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy, or look up Fantasy Files Podcast in the search. What do you guys think of Denna? Do you love her? Do you hate her? How strongly do you feel about it? Let us know in the comments down below. And we'll see you guys next week when we discuss the first book in the Greenbone Saga, Jade City by Fonda Lee. Until next time, listen 3 times. I will ride you naked through the streets like a little pink pony. Believe it.
My internet, I just barely made it through that. I just want to let you know.
Just barely made it through that.
It was like the second Spencer started the outro, all I heard was and I was like, oh god,
really?
Here we go. And then the second you said Little Pink Pony, I heard the rest. I was like, all right, we made it through.
Oh man, we made it through.
We made it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad.
That's funny.
Oh, it's funny.
Oh man, yeah.